what 1 million to 1.3 million buys you in Alamo Heights versus Terrell Hills versus Olmos Park. Now, if you're thinking about buying a home in the $1 to $3 million range in areas like Alamo Heights, Terrell Hills, or Olmos Park, one of the most important things to understand is that your budget doesn't just determine what kind of home you can buy. It determines how the home lives, how it feels, and how it compares across different neighborhoods. Because $1 million in one area can look very different from $1 million in another. And the same is true at the $2 million and the $3 million mark. And what we consistently see is that buyers coming into these neighborhoods often expect a certain level of consistency. They assume that the price alone defines the home. But in reality, location, lot size, architectural style, and even the level of updates all play a significant role in what the price actually gets you. And that's where things can start to feel confusing, because you might see one home at $1.5 million that feels very turnkey and complete, and another home at the same price point that feels more like a renovation opportunity. And without context, it can be difficult to understand why. So what I want to do is walk you through the 7 things that it takes to understand about what $1 to $3 million actually buys you in these areas, so that you can evaluate your options with clarity instead of comparison alone. And the first thing you need to understand is that $1 million price point, you're often entering the neighborhood, not maximizing it. This is one of the most important mindset shifts for buyers at this level, because $1 million is a significant investment. But in neighborhoods like Alamo Heights, it often represents what we would consider an entry point. And what that means is the homes available at this price are typically going to reflect some combination of smaller square footage, older condition, or a need for updates. That doesn't make them less valuable. It just simply means that you are prioritizing location over finish level. And to make this more tangible, you might see a home around $1 million in Alamo Heights that has strong architectural character, a great location, but requires modernization. Or you might see a smaller, more updated home where the layout's a little bit more compact and the trade-off is space versus finish. And when you compare that to a similar price point in Terrell Hills, you may find slightly larger lots with different architectural styles, but still with similar trade-offs between condition and scale. And that's why understanding that $1 million is often an entry point helps set the expectations correctly, because it allows you to evaluate homes based on what they offer within that context, rather than expecting them to reflect the top of the market. And that leads directly to the second thing you need to understand, which is that as you move into the $1.5 to $2 million range, you start to see a shift from entry-level positioning into a more balanced property. And this is where many buyers feel like they have more options, because at this level, you're often able to find homes that offer a combination of location, space, and updates. Rather than having to choose just one, we consistently see in this range, there's a mix of renovated homes, partial renovations, and properties that have been updated over time. And this is also where architectural variety becomes more noticeable, because you may find traditional homes, you may find transitional designs, and properties that have been expanded or reconfigured to meet the more modern expectations. And in areas like Olmos Park, this range can offer larger lots and more established settings, while still requiring careful evaluation of the condition and the layout. And this is where our buyers, we really help them be particularly thoughtful, because not all updates are equal. I think we all know that, but they don't all add the same level of value. And that leads directly into the third thing you need to understand, which is that at the $2 to $3 million range, you begin to see a shift into a fully realized home. That even within that price range, there's still some variation of what needs to be understood, because while many homes at this level will offer large square footage, more updated interiors, more refined finishes, the difference between properties are still significant. And what you often see is that some homes are fully renovated and turnkey, while others still have strong bones but leave room for customization. And this is also where factors like lot size, privacy, maybe architectural significance, they begin to play a larger role in pricing. For example, at the $2.5 million home in Alamo Heights may prioritize location and design, where a similarly priced Terrell Hills home may offer more land and a different type of setting. And understanding those differences is what allows you to evaluate value more accurately. When you step back and you look at these first 3 points together, you begin to see that the $1 to $3 million range is not a single category. It's a progression from entry level. It's hard to believe, but yes, $1 million starts to be entry level positioning, to more balanced options in the middle range, to more fully realized homes at the upper end. And when you understand that progression, it becomes much easier to compare homes across neighborhoods and make decisions that align with your priorities. And once you understand how the $1 to $3 million range is not a single category, but a progression from entry-level positioning to a more fully realized home, the next thing you'd understand is how these price points actually play out differently across the neighborhoods, like Alamo Heights, Terrell Hills, Olmos Park. Because this is where many buyers start to feel the biggest disconnect. They assume that once they've defined their budget, the experience will be relatively consistent across all areas. But in reality, each neighborhood interprets that budget differently. And that interpretation is what shapes the type of home that you're actually going to be able to purchase. So the fourth thing you need to understand is that Alamo Heights often prioritizes location and architectural character over sheer size. And this is one of the defining characteristics of the area, because when buyers are drawn to Alamo Heights, they're often drawn to the established feel, the proximity to central San Antonio, and the architectural variety that comes from homes built over different time periods. And it's a lot of fun to be in those neighborhoods, drive around and see that. And what that means in practice is that the $1 to $2 million range, you may see homes that are smaller in square footage, but richer in character. Homes that have been updated over time, but still reflect the original design. And properties where the value is strongly tied to location rather than scale. And for some buyers, that's exactly what they're looking for. They prioritize walkability. They prioritize charm. They prioritize being in a specific part of the city. They're comfortable with trade-offs that come with that. But for other buyers, especially those coming in from markets where square footage is more abundant, this can feel like a shift, because expectation is that at that price point, which is a big price point, the home should be larger, newer, and more uniform. And that's why understanding how Alamo Heights interprets value is so important, because it allows you to decide whether those priorities align with what you're looking for. And that leads directly into the fifth thing you need to understand, which is that Terrell Hills often offers more space and lot size at a similar price point, but with a different style of presentation. And this is where comparison becomes very interesting, because at similar price points, you may find that homes in Terrell Hills offer larger lots, more separation between properties, and in some cases, larger overall footprints. And that can be very appealing for buyers who prioritize space, privacy, and the ability to expand over time. But at the same time, these homes may vary more in terms of updates, layouts, and overall finish. And what we consistently see is that buyers in this range are often choosing between location-driven value in Alamo Heights and space-driven value in Terrell Hills. Neither is better. They simply represent different priorities. And to make this more real, you might compare two homes around, let's say, $2 million. One's in Alamo Heights that's fully updated but on a smaller lot, and one's in Terrell Hills that offers significantly more land and square footage but may not be as recently updated. And that comparison is really not about which one is better. It's about which one aligns more closely with how you want to live. And that leads directly into the sixth thing you need to understand, which is Olmos Park tends to offer a unique combination of scale, setting, and architectural presence, but with its own set of considerations. And this is where the market becomes even more nuanced, because Olmos Park is known for larger lots. And they have beautiful trees over there. It's got established landscaping. Homes often have a strong sense of presence, whether that comes from the architectural design, those beautiful Thorman homes, lot placement, or overall setting. And at the $1 to $3 million range, this can translate into properties that feel more expansive, more private, more established, but can also mean homes vary widely in terms of updating and layout, because many of these properties have been built over different eras, modified over time. And what that means for buyers is that evaluation becomes even more important, because two homes at similar price points can offer very different experiences depending on how they've been maintained or updated. And we all know that. You go into two homes, quite different, same price range. This is where the buyer expectations need to adjust slightly, because in neighborhoods like Olmos Park, part of the value is tied to the setting itself, the lot, the maturity of the landscaping, the gorgeous oak trees, the overall feel of the area, and not just the interior finish. And when you step back and you look at these three neighborhoods together, you begin to see that the $1 to $3 million range is not just about price. It's about how the price interacts with the location, the lot size, the architectural, the level of updates, and that interaction is what creates the differences that buyers experience. And to take this one step further, it's helpful to think how buyers typically make decisions within this range, because most buyers are not choosing between identical homes. What they're doing is instead they're choosing between trade-offs. They're deciding whether they value location over size, updates over lot, privacy over proximity. And what we see is that buyers who feel the most confident in their decisions are the ones who have taken the time to define these priorities clearly. Because when you know what matters most to you, it becomes much easier to evaluate each option with the context of that priority. And this is where I want to stop. I want to introduce myself more directly, because this is exactly where we spend a significant amount of time guiding our clients through the process. I'm Caroline Decherd with the Park Properties Group at the Phyllis Brown & Company. One of the things we focus on is helping you understand it's not just what's available, but how to interpret what you're seeing, how to compare homes across different neighborhoods, and how to make decisions that align with your goals rather than just reacting to individual properties. And when you step back and you look at everything we've covered so far, from how price points shift within $1 to $3 million range, to how these price points are expressed differently across areas like Alamo Heights, Terrell Hills, Olmos Park, you begin to see that buying in this range is not just about finding a home. It's about understanding how different variables come together to create value. And when you understand that, the entire process becomes much more strategic and much more intentional. And once you understand how the $1 to $3 million range functions as a progression rather than a single category, and how neighborhoods like Alamo Heights, Terrell Hills, and Olmos Park each interpret that price point a little differently in terms of location, lot size, architectural style, and level of updates. The seventh and final thing you need to understand is how to actually decide where you fall on the range, and how to choose between those options in a way that feels clear and confident. Because this is where most buyers start to feel a little overwhelmed, not because there aren't good options, but because there are multiple good options and each offers something different. And what we consistently see is that buyers at this level are not choosing between good and bad homes. They're choosing between different versions of value. And that's where having a clear framework becomes incredibly important, because without it, every home feels like a new decision and the process can start to feel inconsistent. But when you have a framework, you can evaluate each property through the same lens. And that creates clarity. So the first part of that framework is understanding what you value most between location, condition, space, because those are the three variables that are constantly shifting in this price range. Give me a call. We would love to help walk you through this process. We specialize in holding a buyer's hand, finding them an amazing opportunity to buy their dream home. And that's our specialty. And again, I'm Caroline Decherd with the Phyllis Brown & Company Park Properties Group. Thanks for watching.